It's a bit of a cliche nowadays to say that business leaders have trust issues. True, each year they tend to rank towards the foot of Ipsos's Global Trustworthiness Monitor, much more trusted than political leaders, but a long way behind professions like doctors, scientists and teachers. But this is nothing new. The trust deficit for business, as for many other parts of civic and political life, is a long-term chronic condition rather than an acute one. And as our new report shows, trust in many of the sectors and institutions we've looked at, such as the pharma sector, for example, is actually on a slow but steady rise. So when we dig a little deeper, the picture is more interesting and nuanced. Take the headline that just 3 in 10 of the global public trust business leaders to tell the truth. Now that's far from ideal, of course, but the proportion who actively mistrust, at 37%, is only a little higher. The remainder are non-committal. Many will feel that they don't know enough to commit or think it depends on the leader or the business or the context. So there's an opportunity here for business leaders who have a positive, authentic story to tell to marshal public support around the good things they're doing and how they contribute to wider society. A second important point is that trust in business leaders varies a great deal across the globe. So in countries like China, India, Japan and Saudi Arabia, where businesses are more likely to be seen as engines of dynamism and progress, people are much more likely to say they trust business leaders than their peers in European or North American nations. The same is true when we ask people whether business leaders generally behave ethically and are a force for good in the world. The answer is likely to vary quite dramatically depending on which part of the world you're asking it in. This year, we're also seeing some really interesting findings on the vexed question of whether business leaders should speak out on the big social and political issues affecting their country. Globally, half say they should, rising to more than 2/3 in places like South Africa and India. And in each country, a plurality agree. So, even where trust is low, business leaders seem to have a license, or even a duty, to take a stand on the issues that really matter to their compatriots. Now, of course, we know that this kind of corporate activism carries risks. Many social, cultural, and identity issues are highly polarizing, especially for businesses which operate across multiple countries. So speaking out may alienate stakeholders who don't share your worldview, as well as making you vulnerable to charges of hypocrisy if your own business doesn't walk the talk. But it does seem the genie is out of the bottle. More and more business leaders are finding their voices on the global stage, and on the whole, the public are pretty relaxed about it. Taking this a step further, this year, 2 in 5 of the global public agree that business leaders are actually overtaking politicians as a force for progressive change in the world. Now, this is a contentious subject, and critics do worry about things like corporate overreach or hollow woke washing. Nevertheless, we can at least ask whether we're seeing the role of business in society changing quite fundamentally, particularly in Western liberal democracies, many of which face growing challenges around polarization, legitimacy, and capacity. What's not in doubt is that the trust landscape is shifting as businesses become more purpose-driven, their employees more assertive, and their leaders more vocal. This means that more than ever, business leaders need to arm themselves with a really clear understanding of what creates trust in their company, what destroys it, and the actions they can take to protect their most valuable asset.